Next on the Daily Ledger, pardon the Obama pardon, blanket clemency for criminals is coming.
Later this week, the Deputy Attorney General will announce new criteria that the department will consider when recommending applications for the President's review. This new and improved approach will make the criteria for clemency recommendation more expansive.
We will look at the White House plan to let drug offenders go free. Also, rhino Republicans falling in line with Obama on amnesty for illegals.
The appetite amongst my colleagues for doing this is not real good. And this guy's back here with a camera, but here's the attitude. Oh, don't make me do this. Oh, this is too hard. You should hear him.
Plus, exposing the real war on women. Also, the First Lady humiliated by a fifth grader whose father is a victim of Obamonomics.
Okay, you right in the front.
My dad's been out of a job for 3 years, and I wanted to give you his resume.
Plus, why millennials do not think going to college is worth it. Stand by. The doors of the newsroom are locked and the PC police are not getting in. So sit back and relax as we unfold today's edition of the Daily Ledger. Hello everyone, I'm Graham Ledger and welcome to the Daily Ledger. Our cover story, the lawlessness of the Obama White House is getting worse, folks, each day. This White House is ignoring immigration law over and over again. More on that later in the program. But right now, this White House is going to grant blanket clemency. Poof, just like that. The hell with federal law. Obama and Eric Holder are going constitutionally rogue. But the fallout is beginning to happen. Holder officially canceled a trip to Oklahoma City where he was scheduled to speak. It was a graduating class of the police department there. The Justice Department says it was a scheduling conflict. However, truth is, Holder ducked out because of pushback, a hostile reception. Law enforcement is beginning to question the nation's top law officer who continues to thumb his nose at the law.
The White House has indicated it wants to consider additional clemency applications to restore a degree of justice, fairness, and proportionality for deserving individuals who do not pose a threat to public safety. The Justice Department is committed to recommending as many qualified applicants as possible for reduced sentences. Later this week, the Deputy Attorney General will announce new criteria that the department will consider when recommending applications for the President's review. This new and improved approach will make the criteria for clemency recommendation more expansive.
New and improved. The Obama Holder clemency plan would set free thousands of prisoners. Clearly, Holder is using his position to advance a political agenda. He's ignoring his oath to uphold the Constitution. It's legal anarchy, and we are living it real time. So where does the Attorney General, ostensibly, derive his power to change existing federal law? Joining me now, attorney and legal analyst Brian Watkins. Brian, before we get to that question, before you answer that question, the difference between a pardon and clemency, it's a minor thing, but maybe you can let us know what it is.
Well, a pardon is basically we're taking it off your record. We're not saying that you didn't do it, you served your time, and now we're going to clean your record and let bygones be bygones. Clemency, on the other hand, is saying, hey, we're going to give you a break. I know you got sentenced to 50 years in prison, but you did 10, and we're going to call it even.
Okay, so if the Obama administration, the White House, wants to issue clemency to potentially thousands of drug offenders, is he deriving it, do you think, from the ability for the President of the United States to grant pardons, which has usually been an individual case-by-case thing?
Yes, well, I think clemency and pardons is an executive power. It's not a legislative power, and that's how it's always been. You know, Bush pardoned a lot of his cohorts and his friends before he left office, so it's nothing that's new.
Okay, but this was, again, a kind of a case-by-case situation, whether his friends or cohorts or whatever. We're talking here a little bit different. We're talking a wholesale change to existing federal law and allowing potentially thousands of current prisoners to go free. That's a little bit different than just saying, hey, you made a mistake, I'm going to give you clemency.
Well, these are all the same type of cases, and we cannot continue to lock up people for life, or what amounts to life, when you're giving people 30, 40, 50-year sentences for drugs. What he's trying to do is clean up the failed war on drugs, and that's something that needs to happen, because we cannot afford to keep these people in prison for so long. When these aren't Manuel Noriegas or Pablo Escobars that we're talking about people who were paid $500 to drive a car across the border and it contained X amount of kilos of cocaine, or a person that facilitated a drug deal. He gave one phone number to another person and another phone number, and a drug deal happened. Now he's caught up in the conspiracy. These are the type of people that we're talking about, not Pablo Escobar.
Okay, let's stipulate that what you're saying is correct, that these are low-level criminals. But the law is the law. And so if you want to change the system, you need to change the law. So the law has been passed by Congress through the due process, and now we have an Attorney General and a White House that simply wants to circumvent that process. Don't you think that's a problem?
Well, like I said, clemency and pardons is an executive decision. It's not a legislative decision. I mean, when you seek clemency or you seek a pardon, you don't go to Congress to ask for it. You go to the president. And that's the way it's always been. And what needs to happen right now is we're in a budget crisis. We cannot afford to keep these people locked up for so long. And the crime should, no, I should say the punishment rather, should fit the crime. It shouldn't fit the political power that's in power at the time.
But again, shouldn't you go through the process of change? I mean, there's a reason there's a law on the books, right? And the president and the attorney general potentially are ignoring it, if you will, and changing it unilaterally. Shouldn't you go through the process and say, hey, change the law and then raise the threshold so all these people aren't in jail?
I don't know that he's actually violating the law. I think it's within his powers to expand on something. I don't think it's a blanket change. I think it's an expansion on something. I think he has the power to do that.
Okay, so couldn't this apply to any criminal or any statute in this land where the president has the ability to issue clemency or a pardon in this case? Why do you suppose they're picking the drug offenders? I have a theory on it. Why do you think?
Well, because there's clearly an injustice there. There's no reason that one person who possessed rock cocaine, X amount of rock cocaine, serves a 50-year sentence, and a person who possessed the same amount of methamphetamine receive a 10-year sentence. There's just no justice in that. And methamphetamine is actually more dangerous than cocaine. It's equally addictive, and it carries with it the other potential of blowing up. When you have a meth lab, you endanger other people by just creating meth, and that's not the same with cocaine. So there's no reason, there's no justice in a person serving 50 years for possessing cocaine and a person having the same amount of meth serving less time.
All right, what do you think of my theory? And this is purely racially motivated, because I believe this White House, virtually everything it does has an agenda behind it, and a lot of it has to do with race and pitting an American against American. There's a disproportionate number of blacks who are in jail right now, about 527,000 in 2012 from drug offenses. About 420,000 are whites. So the Obama administration, ostensibly, looks at these numbers and said, hey, we need to be more fair, if you will, and let these folks out of jail. Do you buy that?
Well, you got to correct the injustice. The injustice was divvied out by race. That's why there's more blacks in prison for drug-related offenses than whites.
Isn't it that more blacks are committing the crime?
No. Well, they're more scrutinized. There's more police in their neighborhoods, so they're more likely to get arrested. Drug users are white. So you got more drug users. You must have more drug sellers and drug purchasers, but they're not getting convicted and sentenced to the long prison terms that blacks are. So when you see an injustice, you got to attack the injustice.
Well, if there are more blacks in jail because of armed robbery, is that an injustice too?
Well, no. I mean, in this situation here, what we have is a situation where blacks that are more apt to possess cocaine and whites that are more prominently possess methamphetamine, you have them getting lighter sentences with the blacks getting the more extreme sentences when they're doing precisely the same thing.
All right, well, I think the bottom line is, from my perspective, is I think that the Holder Justice Department and the Obama White House should go through the process and change the law and not do this unilaterally, but obviously you see it differently.
Absolutely.
Brian, thanks.
Hey, thank you.
Coming up next, the White House on the verge of rewriting immigration law again. Plus, in Oregon, hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars wasted courtesy of Obamacare.
But when Cover Oregon opened for business last October, the website wasn't working and still isn't fully functioning. Now, new Cover Oregon leaders believe the best idea is to switch us onto the existing federal health exchange.